While the sequester axe gets ready to swing tonight at midnight, well, maybe not such a big axe after all, wasteful Washington spending remains untouched. Oregon Congressman Greg Walden, chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, joins us right now. Good morning to you. Why aren't you down in Washington? The big leaders are going to meet today in about an hour and 12 minutes.
Isn't that the amazing thing? The president's never-ending campaign came to an abrupt end today, so we can meet with congressional leaders. The sequester is supposed to take up tonight.
Right.
And by the way, we're talking, what, 2% of overall federal spending?
Right.
We can't sustain this.
And really, it's a decrease in the increase. We were supposed to spend that much money. Next year, it'll be like that much money.
I think you overstated it. And the federal government's going to have more revenue next year than this year.
Right.
And it's going to spend more money than it did this year. Look, for the next generation, if we can't get this under control and do away with some of the wasteful, stupid Washington spending, the next generation's doomed, and so is our economy.
Did you say wasteful spending? Because if you did, I want to show folks at home, this is what our government is spending money on. As you can see, almost $700,000 on a climate change musical. Instead of, we spent money on that instead.
They're freeing up the illegal aliens and turning them loose before the sequester even takes place.
Here's another one. Our federal government spent $325,000 creating a robotic squirrel, and instead, Congressman, what are they doing? They're cutting
Medicare.
Oh.
I mean, if you think it's a squirrel looking for a nut in Washington, they're now inventing robotic squirrels to do it at your expense. Your expense.
Oh, I know it. Instead of, look at this, cutting taxpayer-funded liquor, vodka, whiskey, and gin, that cost us almost $100,000. Instead, they are...
They're laying off the TSA workers. They want to inflict the most pain possible on the most people possible rather than go after this wasteful Washington spending. Do you know, last year alone, according to a GAO report, government overpaid various people and contractors $115 billion. $115 billion. That's more than the sequester. This could be resolved and managed. Having been a small business owner for 22 years, there's a way to do this.
I think the White House is worried, Congressman, that if people see that a little 2% cut in federal spending is possible without a catastrophe, the people of America might realize that we don't need a government as big as it's growing.
And yet this administration wants a bigger government. Yep. It wants higher taxes, and yet it hasn't even submitted its own budget. 4 out of 4 years, President's not submitted a budget on time. This is the next year. It's supposed to be on February 4th. Here it's almost 4th of March, and they say, well, maybe middle of March we'll have a budget. Come on, get off the plane. Do you know if you just grounded Air Force One, you'd save about $180,000 an hour? How many TSA workers wouldn't have to be furloughed if you just didn't go on the never-ending campaign?
Wouldn't that be a refreshing question if somebody asked that in the White House briefing room?
It could happen.
You never know. All right, Congressman Greg Walden from Oregon. Real pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Good to be with you.